Shia government of Bashar al-Assad violently put down peaceful Sunni demonstrations when Arab Spring discontent with kleptocratic leaders spread to Syria. The brutal actions of the Assad regime forces led to growing resentment and violence in the Sunni areas of Syria, and ultimately led to the start of the Sunni-Shia Syrian civil war that has raged so horrifically for the past 8 years. ISIS rightly assessed that it could exploit the anger in Syria and gain additional fighters, leaders, and resources in the Sunni areas, especially in the north and east, which also contained the bulk of Syria's oil production. They subsequently did just that. By the summer of 2014, ISIS had already seized Mosul, the largest city in northern Iraq, and a number of cities in western Iraq. It was spreading down the Tigris and Euphrates river valleys like a virulent plague, threatening Ramadi and Baghdad in central Iraq, and also Erbil, the capital of Iraq's Kurdish regional government in northern Iraq. And it controlled a vast area of northeastern Syria that was contiguous to the areas it controlled in Iraq. It was the threat to Baghdad and Erbil, in particular, that led President Obama to approve deployment of U.S. forces to those cities. They would become the hubs of the U.S.-led coalition that sought to help Iraqi forces halt the advance of ISIS, and then to advise, assist, and enable the Iraqis as they conducted an increasingly impressive counteroffensive against heavily armed, dug-in ISIS elements. Though the U.S. task force was initially modest in size, it grew over time and ultimately became very lethal and effective in support of the Iraqi forces on the ground. And it did so with a fraction of the 165,000 American men and women in uniform that deployed in Iraq during the height of the surge. The counter-ISIS effort included numerous strange bedfellows, among them forces from dozens of the countries that comprised the U.S.-led coalition, Iraqi military and police forces, Kurdish Peshmerga, Sunni tribal elements, and even Iranian-supported Shia militia. Over the ensuing several years, a new way of waging war evolved, largely unprecedented in its methodology and application of modern technology. The employment of an enormous constellation of manned and unmanned intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets, together with air and ground-launched precision strike munitions, all guided by the industrial-strength fusion of all forms of intelligence, in order to enable host nation forces with whom coalition advisors were located, has been a path-breaking approach. And over time, the ability to conduct precise airstrikes on a significant scale without forward controllers on the ground added a hugely important component. Hunting the Caliphate tells the story of this effort, of the men and women of the U.S.-led coalition that enabled Iraqi security forces to halt the advance of one of the most barbaric and extreme forces the world has ever seen, and then commence the counteroffensive operations that would ultimately lead to the defeat of ISIS in Iraq and in Syria. We hear of this fight from two different vantage points, that of the task force's commanding general, Major General Dana Pittard, and that of one of the Special Operations Force's most experienced Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, Wes Bryant. Both were highly talented professionals who had served with distinction in Iraq and elsewhere previously, and already had achieved enviable reputations as accomplished warfighters and leaders. They knew Iraq and the Iraqis well, and they served the citizens of the land of the two rivers and our own country with extraordinary skill and competence. The resulting narrative offers a riveting, no-holds-barred account, hitherto untold, of what transpired as new approaches for battling a determined, highly capable, and extremely barbaric enemy were developed, while American and coalition elements sought to help Iraqi and other partners in the fight against ISIS from Iraq to Syria to Afghanistan. This is a compelling and important story, and Hunting the Caliphate captures it vividly and clearly. General David H. Petraeus, U.S. Army, retired, Arlington, Virginia. Introduction. In this book, we will use the name ISIS to refer to the terrorist force that has also been widely known as ISIL, IS, or Daesh. In August of 2014, ISIS controlled more than 34,000 square miles in Iraq and Syria, from the Mediterranean coast to the south of Baghdad.